Okay, so good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of tax training. Our topic is continuation of income tax discussion and kasama na rin po yung question and answer, no? And our topic today is about allowable deductions, no? Dito tayo sa allowable deductions. I would like to say thank you po sa ating mga ka-YouTubers and sa ating mga subscribers, no? Maabot na tayo ng 5,700. Thank you very much. No? Po muna ako. Okay. Ano yung aircon? Muna dito. Hirap na umakyat sa sa upuan. Okay na sa camera? Okay. Okay, so let's start with our topic discussions, no? Shout out muna. Sino yun nandyan?
Shout out si Sir Christian Brian Kakayan.
Oh, shout out Sir Christian.
Tapos si Ma'am Richelle Ann Zaragoza.
Okay.
Rodrigueza.
Ma'am Richelle Ann, shout out din po.
At si Ma'am Mariflor Serrano.
Okay, shout out to Ma'am Mariflor Serrano. No? So, good evening po. Excuse me. Okay, so let us start with our discussion in chapter 7, no? Dito po sa income tax, no? Ito yung topic natin. And now we go to the allowable deductions. What are the allowable deductions po sa income, no? Kasi hindi naman basta-basta lang tayo magbabayad ng ba't namatay, Ari? Nawala. Sige. Okay, so our topic is about allowable deductions, and this is under Section 34 of the National Internal Revenue Code on deductions from gross income. Why? If we want to compute the taxable income, we have to start with our definition, which we have done last Tuesday on our live streaming. We have defined kung ano ba yung mga gross, no? Yung kasama sa gross income. And in order to arrive at the taxable income, ang sabi po ng tax code, i-deduct natin yung mga allowable deductions, no? So, this evening, our discussion will focus on ano ba itong mga allowable deductions, ang mga limits nila, at saka yun yung mga requirements in order that we can claim for these deductions, no? At saka sino yung mga pwedeng mag-claim ng deductions. Okay. Sabi ng Section 34, except for taxpayers earning compensation income arising from personal services rendered under an employer-employee relationship where no deduction shall be allowed. Under this section, in computing taxable income, subject to income tax under Section 24A, 25A, 26, 27A, B and C, and 28A1, there shall be allowed the following deductions from gross income. Bakit sinabi po dito na except taxpayers earning compensation income under an employer-employee relationship? Kasi po ang taxation, yung nabinabayaran na tax ng isang empleyado based on gross, wala pong deductions. No? Wala siyang deductions, but the first 250,000 is 0%. So, hindi na kailangan niya ng deductions. Bakit? lump na lahat doon ang mga deductions doon sa 250,000 na walang tax. No? Okay, so yung employees natin are tax on gross. No? Okay. So what are the expenses? Letter A. Number 1, ordinary and necessary trade, business, or professional expenses. No? So kaya pag tiningnan yung balance sheet nyo, income statement, yung mga claim expenses nyo doon, at saka yung i-match po yan doon sa nature ng business nyo. So dapat ordinary lang siya at saka necessary, kailangan ng inyong negosyo related sa negosyo nyo. No? Hindi pwede yung halimbawa, transportation company yung inyong negosyo. Tapos ang laki ng mga inventories nyo. No? So, hindi match doon sa nature ng inyong business, ang inyong expenses. No? So, dapat ordinary and necessary lang sa type ng business kung anong meron kayo. No, so, letter A in general, there shall be allowed as deduction from gross income all the ordinary and necessary expenses paid or incurred during the taxable year. So itong sabi niya, paid or incurred during the taxable year, meaning accrual method of accounting. Why? Kasi kahit hindi mo pa siya nabayaran, pero na-incurred mo na expense mo na siya, pero hindi pa bayad, so payable pa lang, kasama na rin po, allowed na rin siya as deductions. No? On which are directly attributable to the development, management, operation, and or conduct of the trade, business, or exercise of profession. So, ano yung mga expenses na yon or deductions? Okay. A reasonable allowance for salaries and wages. So, may empleyado ka, may negosyo ka. So, may empleyado ka na ang kasama mo, siyempre hindi mo kakayanin na mag-isa ka lang. No? So, and other forms of compensation for personal services actually rendered, no? Including the gross up monetary value of friends' benefits furnished or granted by the employer to the employee, provided that the final tax imposed under Section 33 hereof has been paid. Bakit kasama yung monetary value ng friends' benefits? Kasi binigay yun sa empleyado at saka binayaran yun ng tax ng employer, ang final tax, no? Yung friends benefits. Kanino binibigay yung friends benefits? To the supervisory and managerial functions na mga employees. No? And then next is the reasonable allowance, no? Number 2. Reasonable allowance for travel expenses here and abroad. No? So reasonable, ibig sabihin not excessive, no? Kasi ang opposite po ng reasonable, excessive, no? Sobra-sobra. Reasonable allowance for travel expenses here and abroad. Here and abroad, kung yung business ng taxpayer ay may connection doon sa abroad, no? Pero kung halimbawa, dito lang naman sa Pilipinas yung kanyang negosyo, hindi niya kailangan, hindi na ordinary yung papunta-punta pa siya ng abroad, no? Halimbawa, farming lang naman siya dito sa Pilipinas o kaya rental ang negosyo niya. Ba't kailangan pa niya magpunta ng abroad? No? So, hindi yun reasonable. So, while away from home in the pursuit of trade, business, or profession. Pero halimbawa, accountant ka or lawyer ka, meron kang client na may transaction halimbawa sa abroad, sinamahan mo. So, reasonable, no? Pero in that case kasi, shoulder ng client ang expenses. Kaya take note also na pagka ganyang mga cases, bawal din na mag-charge ka ng expenses kasi ma-double reimbursement ka. Ni-reimburse ka na ng client mo, tapos kinlay mo pa sa double claim ka, double benefits ka doon sa travel expenses mo, no? Reasonable allowance for rentals and or other payments which are required as a condition for the continued use or possession for purposes of the trade, business, or profession of property to which the taxpayer has not taken or is not taking title or in which he has no equity other than that of a lessee, user, or possessor. So, ano yung allowed pa? Rental, no? Rental payments. No? Provided ano naman ang requirements sa taxpayer pa nag-claim siya ng rental, no? Subject naman sa 5% na withholding tax. Okay. Walang question?
Wala pa po, ma'am. Pero shoutout, ma'am.
Okay, shout out muna.
Si Ma'am Maria Eden Fuentes.
Okay. Shout out Ma'am Maria Eden. No, ang ganda
Tapos si
pangalan.
Sir Justin Valeros, sabi niya, ma'am, so dedicated, ma'am.
Yun yung ano, pagka sinabi mo, pangangatawanan mo, no? Kahit pagod ka, kahit ano, kasi sinabi mo eh. Yun lang yung katwiran ko na simpleng-simple lang sa buhay. Pag sinabi mo, gawin mo. Otherwise, kung ayaw mong gawin, huwag mong sabihin. Ganun lang kasimple. Eh, sinabi mo na every Tuesday and Thursday, gawin mo. Otherwise, huwag mong sabihin. Ganun lang. No? So, number 4, reasonable allowance for entertainment, amusement, and recreation expenses. No? So, reasonable, hindi sobra-sobra na halos araw-araw ka naman mayroong ang representation expenses. No? So, reasonable lang. During the taxable year that are directly connected to the development, management, operation of the trade, business, or profession of the taxpayer, or that are directly related to or in the furtherance of the conduct of his or its trade, business, or exercise of profession. Okay? Pero, itong entertainment, amusement, and recreation, meron siyang limit, no? Not to exceed such selling as the Secretary of Finance may, by rules and regulations, prescribe. Ano tong rules and regulations, no? Revenue regulations ng BIR. Magkano yung limit ng entertainment, amusement, and recreation? 1% of gross receipt pagka sale of services. 0.5% of sale of goods, pag sale of goods, no? 0.5% lang. Yan lang ang pwede mo may claim na entertainment. Kahit marami ka pang during the year na entertainment expense, saan mo i-deduct yan? Doon sa kita mo, doon sa income mo. Kung corporation ka, doon sa retained earnings mo. Kung ikaw naman ay individual, doon sa capital mo. No? But for tax purposes, hindi po siya pwede na i-allow as a deduction. Pag sumobra na doon sa 1% of sale of services and 0.5% for the sale of goods. No? So, provided that any expense incurred for entertainment, amusement, or recreation that is contrary to law, no? Kung dinala mo halimbawa sa club, sa motel, no? Contrary to law, morals, dinala mo sa sabungan, no? Sa pasugalan, public policy or public order shall in no case be allowed as a deduction. Kasi contrary to law, no? So yung mga legitimate lang na entertainment, no? Okay. Substantiation requirements, ito yung pinaka-importante. What are the substantiation requirements kung ikaw ay may expenses na kailangan mo i-deduct sa yung income, no? No deduction. O, ito na, maliwanag to. Batas itong pinag-uusapan natin. Batas itong binabasa ko sa inyo, no? Kaya ako nagbabasa. Kasi batas to eh. Hindi ko man memorize yung mga batas. At ayoko namang nag-i-interpret ng batas, no? That's why talagang binabasa ko sa inyo word for word, no? Dami na nagko-comment, ma'am, binabasa nyo. Batas po yan, wala tayong magagawa dyan, no? Pati nga kama dyan, period, kailangan. Wala kang babaguhin, no? So, pagka sinabi-sabi ko lang, hindi naman to the letter ko na memorize, no? Magkakamali pa ako at ayoko yung sisisihin ako na ako nag-advise yun pala mali, no? So, para safe tayo, ang binabasa ko po sa inyo ngayon, ito po yung income tax law at amended na po ito, updated na ito under the train law, no? Okay. So, substantiation requirements, no deduction from gross income shall be allowed under subsection A hereof unless the taxpayer shall substantiate. Yan na ha. Kailangan may substantiation ka. Kaya yung tinuturo ko sa bookkeeping, na ang sabi ko doon, mag-record tayo. Pero kung nag-record ka lang din naman, wala namang supporting documents. Yung ni-record mo na sales, wala ka namang resibo. No? Sorry na lang. No? May client ako na tumawag, may letter authority na siya, but sorry na lang talaga, wala siyang resibo, ilang years na siyang nagninegosyo. No? So sabi ko, yun ang pinakamasaklap na parte ng buhay natin na alam natin na may dapat tayong gawin, tapos nandun na tayo sa problema, saka pa lang natin gagawin. No? Yan ang attitude na being passive. No? Meron pa akong isang YouTube channel na Tips for Life, no? Yung isama ko yan dyan, yung how to be, yung mga bad habits natin, paano natin tanggalin sa atin, no? At saka pag-aralan natin yung mga bad habits na sometimes yung being passive. Sige lang, bayaan mo muna dyan, bayaan muna. Being passive, nagka-crop up pala siya ng maraming problema. No? Samantalang kung yung isang problema na yan, inaksyonan na kaagad, wala ka nang iisipin, tapos na. Hindi yung kakabaka-baka pa everyday. No? Everybody is guilty. Ako din, sometimes guilty din ako dyan, no? Being passive. That's why, as I research, no? Para kung ano ipalaman ko dun sa Tips for Life ko. Although I have accumulated already so many materials, no? Kaya nga, nagbukas ako ng ganyang channel para mai-share ko doon yung mga tips na yun, no? Kasi sabay tayong mag-aaral, sabay tayong matuto, sabay tayong mag-develop ng mga bagong kaugalian para yung dati natin na pinapractice, maalis yun, no? Because, ano dapat? We are facing the new normal, no? Kaya kami pagod, pumunta kami ng Pampanga kanina just to reach there na kasi may mga client ka sana pupuntahan na walang tao, skeleton force. At ang pupuntahan mo, sarado. No? So sabi ko, this is the new normal. Wala tayong magawa, but we have to face it. No? So, in order that we can face the new normal, ano rin yung dapat natin baguhin? Sarili din natin. Kasama na yung mga belief natin, kasama na yung mga attitudes natin, kasama na yung mga habits natin. Kailangan baguhin. No? Kasi, sino ba yung magta-thrive sa bagong normal? Yung ready, at saka proactive, at saka handa, at saka gustong magbago. Pero yung ayaw, nag-cling pa sila doon sa old life na wala na, kayo din ang mahirapan. No? Pahirapan nyo rin yung sarili nyo. Okay. So what are the substantiation requirements? No? So no deduction from gross income shall be allowed under subsection A hereof, ito yung mga allowable deductions natin, unless the taxpayer shall substantiate with sufficient evidence. At ano yung sufficient evidence na yan? Such as official receipts or other adequate records. The amount of the expense being deducted and the direct connection or relation of the expense being deducted to the development, management, operation, and or conduct of the trade, business, or profession of the taxpayer. Ito na yung sinasabi po natin na business documentation. So, bawat transaction na meron ka kasama palagi yung dokumento. No? Kasi pagdating na sa recording at pagdating na sa audit, pagdating na paggawa mo na ng financial statements, kung drawing yan, mahirapan ka na naman mag-reconstruct, no? Mag-produce ng dokumento. No? At saka ano pa yung sabi ngayon sa taxation natin, our documents should be contemporaneous. And what do you mean by contemporaneous? Existing at the time of the transaction. Hindi yung tapos na yung FS, balikan na lang sa kapag ginawa, no? Hanggang sa dumating na lang yung letter authority, hindi pa nagawa yung dokumento, no? So anong dapat? Every transactions that you have, may kasama na yan. Sabay na ginagawa yung dokumento, no? Letter C, bribes, kickbacks, and other similar payments. No deduction from gross income shall be allowed under subsection A hereof for any payment made directly or indirectly to an official or employee of the national government, or to an official or employee of any local government unit, or to an official or employee of a government-owned or controlled corporation, or to an official or employee or representative of a foreign government, or to a private corporation, general professional partnership, or a similar entity if the payment constitutes a bribe or kickback. No? Ano tong bribe or kickbacks? These are considered illegal payments. Kaya hindi siya pwedeng i-claim as deductions. No? Totoo naman po nagbigay kami ng bribes kasi hindi lalabas yung dokumento namin kung hindi kami magbayad. Then, it is not allowable for tax purposes. No? Kung gusto mong magbayad, ubusin mo yung income mo. Bayad mo doon sa kickbacks. But wala pong pakialam yung tax doon. Bayaran mo yung tax. No? Na hindi kasama yung deductions doon sa mga pinamigay mo. No? Expenses allowable to private educational institutions. Itong private educational institutions, ito yung private hospitals, they are considered as special corporations. No? In addition to the expenses allowable as deductions under this chapter, a private educational institution referred to under Section 27B of this code may, at its option, elect either A, to deduct expenditures otherwise considered as capital outlay of depreciable assets incurred during the taxable year for the expansion of school facilities, or to deduct allowance for depreciation thereof under subsection F hereof. No? So, ang special corporation such as private educational institution, allowed po sila na i-deduct na expense yung capital expenditures nila. Kasi sa ibang corporation, sa ibang taxpayer, sa mga individual, hindi po yan ina-allow. Sa kanila lang. No? Yung capital expenditures na nagpagawa ng facilities, nagpa-extend ng school buildings, pinaayos yung pathway, no? Pinaayos yung mga CR ng schools. Sa iba, capital expenditures yan, dinidepreciate yan. No? Sa kanila, may options nila. Pwede nilang i-depreciate sa hindi i-claim kaagad-agad, depreciate nila over the life of the assets, or pwede nilang i-claim kaagad as an expense. No? So, allowed sa, remember, educational institution lang ha, walang sinasabi yung batas na pwede sa iba. No? Okay. So, letter B, interest. No? So, interest, ano po yung interest? The amount of interest paid or incurred within a taxable year on indebtedness. May utang. Kaya yung iba kahit walang utang, ang daming utang. No? Tsaka hindi lang yung daming utang. Utang pa ng utang kahit na maraming utang sa balance sheet. Bakit? Anong hinahabol? Interest expense. No? So, anong sabi po dito? In connection with the taxpayer's profession, trade, or business shall be allowed as deduction from gross income. No? Provided that the taxpayer otherwise allowable deduction for interest expense shall be deducted by 42% of the interest income subjected to final tax, provided that effective January 1, 2009, the percentage tax shall be 33%. Ano to? Ito po yung tinatawag na interest arbitrage. No? Anong ibig sabihin ng interest arbitrage? Marami kang interest expense, pero meron kang interest income. No? So, anong ibabawas doon? Babawasan siya ng 33% ng interest income mo subject to final tax. No? So, halimbawa, yung interest income mo is 100,000. No? Magkano ibabawas ngayon kasi tapos na yung 2009? 33%. No? So, 33,000. So, halimbawa, yung interest expense mo is 200,000 minus 33,000. Di ba kano na lang? 167,000. No? Time out muna ako ng 5 minutes ha. Diyan na naman yung kulog. Okay? So, let's continue, no? So, ganun po yung interest. When you claim interest, subject po siya sa interest arbitrage, no? So, ano yung interest arbitrage? If you have an interest income, 33% ng interest income mo, i-deduct dun sa interest expense. Anong rationale? Bakit ang dami mong pera? Bakit kailangan mo pa mangutang? No? Meron ka namang pera, bakit kailangan mo pang mangutang? You can just imagine na yung pag ikaw nangutang, laki lang ng interest. Pero pag ikaw naglagay ng pera mo sa bangko, napakaliit lang ng interest. No? Okay. So, exceptions sa interest po ha. No deduction shall be allowed in respect of interest under the succeeding paragraphs. No? So, ito, minsan nakakalimutan to ng mga nag-claim ng interest. No? If within the taxable year, an individual taxpayer reporting income on the cash basis incurs an indebtedness on which an interest is paid in advance, no, through discount or otherwise, provided that such interest shall be allowed as a deduction in the year the indebtedness is paid, provided further that if the indebtedness is payable in periodic amortizations, the amount of interest which corresponds to the amount of the principal amortized or paid during the year shall be allowed as deduction in such taxable year. No? Kasi di ba yung iba na uutang ka halimbawa 2 years, pagka sa first year pa lang, dinideduct na lahat ng interest. O kaya, yung binibigay sa iyo na amount, net of interest na. No? So, ano yun? Interest collected in advance. No? So, ano yun? Incurred during the year, no? So, deduction in the year of indebtedness during the year, no? Pwede mo nang i-claim. Pero kung yung interest in-amortize niya, hindi ka agad-agad dinidak, pwede mong i-claim yon during the year na naka-amortize. No? Kung halimbawa, 2 years, then for the first year, yung kalahati lang ng interest ang pwede mong i-claim, yung kalahati for the next taxable year. Pero kung lump sum, dinidak na niya lahat yung interest mo during the year, pero 2 years yan, then during the taxable year na dinidak lahat ng interest mo, pwede mong i-claim lahat. No? Yun ang sinasabi dito. If both the taxpayer and the person to whom the payment has been made or is to be made are persons specified under Section 36B, or if the indebtedness is incurred to finance petroleum exploration. So, hindi siya allowed na deduction. Itong sino itong mga persons under Section 36B, ito yung mga related parties. No? So, explain natin yan maigi sa pagdating natin sa Section 36. No? Number 3, optional treatment of interest expense. At the option of the taxpayer, interest incurred to acquire property used in trade or business or exercise of a profession may be allowed as a deduction or treated as a capital expenditure. Ano yon? Pag treated or allowed as a deduction, i-claim mo siya sa income tax mo right away, no? As interest expense. Pero pag treated siya as capital expenditure, i-add mo siya doon sa cost ng property and then i-amortize mo. Doon sa amortization mo, kasama na doon yung interest expense. No? So, walang nawala. Na-claim mo pa rin, pero hindi nga lang outright. No? But you have the option na pwede mo siyang i-claim outright or pwede mo siyang i-amortize kagaya ng i-depreciate, no? Sa mga susunod na taxable year. No? Okay. So, yun po yung interest expense, no? Okay. So, yung next naman is taxes, no? So, taxes. So, in general, taxes paid or incurred within the taxable year in connection with the taxpayer profession, trade or business shall be allowed as deduction except, so may exception. So, ibig din sabihin ng exception, hindi mo pwedeng i-claim except the income tax. provided for under this title. Siyempre, kaya ka nga pina-allow ng deductions kasi i-compute yung income tax mo. I-deduct mo na yung income tax. No? So, hindi pwede. Letter B, income taxes imposed by authority of any foreign country. So, yung mga taxes sa other country. But this deduction shall be allowed in the case of a taxpayer who does not signify in his return his desire to have any extent the benefits of paragraph 3 of this subsection relating to credits for taxes of foreign countries. No? In some cases, ina-allow yung credits for taxes of foreign countries. Pero sa income tax, depende sa credit, no? At saka depende din po sa country, no? Kagaya ng US, no? Yung halimbawa may income ka, resident citizen ka ng Pilipinas. So you have income within the Philippines, income outside the Philippines. So taxable ka both, no? Within and without. So ano mangyayari kung may income ka doon sa US? Kagaya halimbawa ni Senator Manny Pacquiao, yung income niya sa US, na-deduct na doon yung withholding. Since yung the same income na yan, na-earn niya doon sa US, i-declare pa rin niya dito sa Pilipinas, at dapat i-tax pa rin siya dito because Filipino citizen siya. So, ang mangyayari, yung tax na binawas sa kanya ng US, pwede niya i-claim as tax credit dito. No? But if you are a foreigner, anong taxation natin sa foreigner? Di ba yung foreigner, tax lang siya locally. Kung ano yung income niya dito sa Pilipinas, dito lang siya i-tax. Hindi siya pwedeng i-tax doon sa income niya na galing sa abroad. So definitely, yung tax niya na nasa abroad, na binayad niya doon, hindi na niya pwedeng i-claim na credit dito sa income niya sa Pilipinas. Why? Kasi wala nang pakialam ang Pilipinas doon sa income niya abroad. So naturally, yung foreign tax credit niya, hindi din niya pwedeng i-claim. No? Dapat bayaran niya talaga yung income tax niya dito sa Pilipinas because that foreign tax credit pertains to the income that he earned outside of the Philippines, which is not taxable in the Philippines. No? Okay, so let's now go to estate and donors taxes. Ito pala ang tax na bayad natin sa estate at saka sa donors taxes are also not deductible. Bakit? Kasi hindi naman sila related sa income. Remember that our income tax also ino-observe din niya yung matching principle, no? So, halimbawa, may income ka, ano ba deductions na related to that income? Sabi natin, necessary and ordinary deductions. So, yung estate and donors tax, wala yung bearing, hindi yan related sa income tax. That's why, hindi mo pwedeng i-deduct. Kahit tax yan na binayaran mo na rin. Taxes assessed against local benefits of a kind tending to increase the value of the property assessed. No? So, yung increase sa appraisal, nagbayad ka, hindi po yan kasama. But, yung local taxes and licenses na binayad mo doon sa real estate taxes at saka sa mayor's permit mo na related sa business mo, pwede. No? Provided that taxes allowed under this subsection when refunded or credited shall be included as part of gross income in the year of receipt to the extent of the income tax benefit of said deduction. Halimbawa naman, nagbayad na yung tax na binayaran mo, kinlay mo na expense dito. Overpayment pala, ni-refund sa'yo. I-declare mo naman siya na other income, no? Pag nag-file ka uli ng income tax return mo. Okay. So, limitations on deductions. No? So, in the case of a non-resident alien individual engaged in trade or business in the Philippines and a resident foreign corporation, the deduction for taxes provided in paragraph 1 of this subsection C shall be allowed only if and to the extent that they are connected with income from sources within the Philippines. O, kaya nga. So, kasi non-resident siya eh. So, kailangan connected siya ng income within the Philippines, yung babayaran niya, na doon naka-pertain yung tax credit. Kasi kung hindi niya pwedeng i-claim dito. No? So, credit against tax for taxes of foreign countries. If the taxpayer signifies in his return his desire to have the benefits of this paragraph, the tax imposed by this title shall be credited with letter A, citizen and domestic corporation. In the case of a citizen of the Philippines and of a domestic corporation, the amount of income taxes paid or incurred during the taxable year to any foreign country, no? So, ito yung mga limitations, no? Yung taxes paid sa ibang bansa or the foreign country, no? So, pagka ikaw ay citizen or domestic corporation at nagbayad ka ng income mo sa foreign country, ito yung sample ko kay Senator Manny Pacquiao, pwede mo i-claim na credit yung binayad mo doon sa ibang bansa kasi yung income mo doon sa ibang bansa, i-declare mo rin dito sa Pilipinas. No? So, partnerships and estates, in the case of any such individual who is a member of a general professional partnership or a beneficiary of an estate or trust, his proportionate share of such taxes of the general professional partnership or the estate or trust paid or incurred during the taxable year to a foreign country, if his distributive share of the income of such partnership or trust is reported for taxation under this title. So kung halimbawa trust, no, ang daming gumagawa niyan. Meron silang mga foreign trust, no? Yung investment nandun sa ibang bansa. Ang laki ng kita, ang laki ng interest. So kumikita sila doon, nag-income. Pag resident citizen ka at taxable ka ng income mo within and without the Philippines, yung taxes na binayaran mo doon pertaining to that trust na nag-earn ka ng income, then pwede mong i-claim, no? Remember, para lang yan sa mga Filipino, no? Resident citizen of the Philippines and also domestic corporation. Para sa mga foreign corporation, they are not allowed, no? Okay. Limitations on credit, no? The amount of the credit taken under this section shall be subject to each of the following limitations. So ano yung limitations? The amount of the credit in respect to the tax paid or incurred to any country shall not exceed the same proportion of the tax against which such credit is taken, which the taxpayer taxable income from sources within such country under this title bears to his entire taxable income for the same taxable year. Sige. Gusto kong magsulat-sulat sana pero maliit, hindi nyo makita, no? So, explain na lang natin. Halimbawa, dito sa letter A, halimbawa na lang yung income ni Senator Manny Pacquiao sa US, no? Halimbawa, kumita siya doon ng 1 million. And then, ang tax doon ng Amerika sa kanya is, palagay na natin, $10,000, no? $10,000. Yun yung tax sa Amerika nung income niya, no? Pagdating dito sa Pilipinas, sinama niya yung income na yan sa pag-file ng income tax dito sa Pilipinas, no? So kung mag-compute ka ngayon, yung dito sa Pilipinas, yung tax due nung income ni Senator Manny Pacquiao na galing sa ibang bansa o sa US, ang tax na uukol dito sa Pilipinas is only 100,000. Magkano yung binayad niya sa US? 10,000. Multiply by 50, magkano? Kung yun yung conversion rate natin, 500,000. No? Pero kung yung income na yan, dalhin mo dito sa Pilipinas at i-compute mo yung tax, 100,000 lang. So ano sabi ng batas? Hanggang doon lang sa 100,000 ang pwede niya i-claim na credit at hindi yung actual na binayaran niya. Kasi yung actual na binayaran niya, mataas. Pag yung income na yan, dalhin mo sa Pilipinas, dito mo i-compute yung tax, ito lang yung dapat bayaran. So ito lang yung dapat pwede niyang i-claim na credit. No? O, yun yung limit na sinasabi. Okay. Adjustment on payment of incurred taxes, no? Yung na-incurred na taxes, ano yung adjustment? If accrued taxes when paid differ from the amounts claimed as credit by the taxpayer, or if any tax is refunded in whole or in part, the taxpayer shall notify the commissioner who shall redetermine the amount of the tax for the year or years affected and the amount of tax due upon such redetermination, if any, no, shall be paid by the taxpayer upon notice and demand by the commissioner, or the amount of tax overpaid, if any, shall be credited or refunded to the taxpayer. In the case of such a tax incurred but not paid, the commissioner, as a condition precedent to the allowance of this credit, may require the taxpayer to give a bond with sureties satisfactory to and to be approved by the commissioner in such sum as he may require, conditioned upon the payment by the taxpayer of any amount of tax found due upon any such redetermination. The bond herein prescribed shall contain such further conditions as the commissioner may require. So yun yung mga adjustment dun sa mga payment of incurred taxes, no? Ano to mga incurred taxes? Ito yung nagbayad ka, tapos you find it later na overpayment pala, so nag-claim ka na naman ulit na para ibalik sa iyo yung pera, no? So may mga requirements ang commissioner na mag-post ka ng bond, no? Para to satisfy na pag halimbawa, later on it will be found na talagang may dapat kang bayaran, so the bond will be answerable. No? Okay. Another is the year in which credit taken. So the credits provided for in subsection C3 of this section may at the option of the taxpayer and irrespective of the method of accounting employed. Ano yung accounting method employed natin? Accrual and cash basis. For tax purposes, ano yun lang yung ina-allowed na accrual, no? Hindi pwede yung cash. Okay. So in keeping his books, no? So marami na tayong seminar dito sa bookkeeping. Be taken in the year which the taxes, at saka meron po tayong video on the accounting for income tax, no? Tingnan ninyo yun. Taken in the year which the taxes of the foreign country were incurred, subject however to the conditions prescribed in subsection C5 of this section, if the taxpayer elects to take such credits in the year which the taxes of the foreign country are accrued, the credits for all subsequent years shall be taken upon the same basis, and no portion of any such taxes shall be allowed as a deduction in the same or any succeeding year. Siyempre, kung kinlaim na niya lahat during the year, hindi niya inamortize, then hindi na siya allowed as deduction for the next year. No? Okay. Number 7, proof of credits. The credits provided shall be allowed only if the taxpayer established to the satisfaction of the commissioner the following. Letter A, the total amount of income derived from sources without the Philippines. So anong mga proof dito? Magkano yung total income na kinita niya sa ibang bansa? No? Siguro certificate of withholding or certificate of filing niya ng income tax return niya abroad. No? The amount of income derived from each country, the tax paid or incurred to which is claimed as a credit under said paragraph, such amount to be determined under rules and regulations prescribed by the Secretary of Finance. No? So kung magkano daw yung amount na derived niya from other country. So ano yung mga proof of credits niya? Certificate. No? All other information necessary for the verification and computations of such credits. No? Sa US, meron tayo ng FATCA, no? Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, no? So nire-register din po 'yon. So alam na alam kung magkano yung income mo sa US. Oh, may question? Sige.
Pero shoutout po muna ma'am si username niya ma'am Las Casas.
Okay. So shout out po Las Casas. Good evening.
Shoutout din po kay Miraflor Olores.
Okay, shout out Miss Miraflor.
Romeo Victorino.
Okay, shout out din Mr. Romeo.
Tsaka si Sir Katak Sosyo.
Ikaw Sir Lord ha. Kailan ka mag-live stream, sabay tayo, no? Kailan mo na mag-live stream, no? Kasi ang dami-dami mo ng subscriber, ituloy mo na yan at sayang. No? Ah, ano?
Yung question, ma'am.
Okay,
Galing
sige.
po kay Unisa So.
Okay.
Ang tanong niya, ma'am, estate tax po, ilan days po waiting para sa e-car?
Ha, depende. Kung ngayon, mabilis na po, no? Ang pinakamatagal lang dyan, yung balik-balik ka dahil sa dokumento mo na makita nila. Ito yung mga experiences ko sa pag-follow up ng, ng estate taxes. Minsan, ako, nire-review ko na lahat, may table of contents, lahat-lahat na na-check ko na. Pagdating sa examiner, may ma-miss ka pa. Pagdating doon sa reviewer, may ma-miss ka pa. Doon tumatagal, no? Pero halimbawa, pagbayad mo, ngayon 5 days na lang kasi may claim slip na eh, no? Mabilis na lang sila ngayon mag-process. Basta't kumpleto yung papel mo at pasado doon sa review at saka pasado din doon sa examiner. No? So, mabilis na lang po.
Ito pa, ma'am, galing po kay Ma'am Richelle Ann Saragosa.
Okay.
Ma'am, yung mga business-related expenses po ba na walang BIR registered supporting documents
Oh.
ay pwede pa rin i-record sa books? If yes, paano po nire-record?
I-record mo siya pero for your internal control purposes lang po. But yung i-record mo siya doon sa registered na books of accounts, pag pinakita mo kasi yan sa examiner, i-disallow din niya, no? At posible pa na ma-treat yan as other income, no? Kasi unaccounted cash, no? Kasi wala, paano mo yan i-account, no? Kasi i-account mo siya na purchases. So, depende. At saka depende na rin siguro paano siya i-treat ng examiner. Kasi para sa akin, pagka unsupported, dinidisallow ka agad. Pero meron namang instances na nagsabi yung taxpayer na nagdidemand daw siya ng resibo pero hindi siya binigyan. Pero ang sabi ko sa kanya, sige, i-claim mo, i-note mo na lang dyan na refuse to issue receipt. No? Yung nagbenta. Para siya naman yung sulatan ng BIR in that case. No? Pero ang practice po kasi talaga, why we adopt this, especially the VAT system of taxation in the Philippines, to encourage every seller and every buyer to demand for a receipt. No? Kasi kung i-allow natin itong mga resibo na i-claim, na mga expenses na i-claim mo kahit walang resibo, then parang ma-defeat natin yung purpose kung bakit nag-adapt tayo ng ganitong sistema ng taxation na ini-encourage natin yung pag-issue ng resibo. No? So definitely yung walang resibo, hindi po yan ina-allow talaga. No?
Ito pa po, may pumasok na bagong question, ma'am. Galing po kay Ellie J.
Okay, shout out, LJ.
Ang tanong niya, ma'am, may type po ba ng online business na di need mag-register sa BIR like online ticketing pero sa bahay lang po?
Ulitin mo yung tanong.
Meron po bang type ng online business na hindi na need mag-register sa BIR?
Ay, wala. Lahat po kailangan mag-register. Kahit sa bahay lang kayo, especially now, especially yan na online. Ibig sabihin, pambahay talaga yan na business. Kasi online, hindi na kailangan pumunta ka sa customer mo. Hindi na kailangan yung customer mo pupunta sa iyo. So, sa bahay lang, kasi online ang facilities mo. So, kailangan po. And for your information, nag-uumpisa na po ang BIR ngayon na nagki-keep track doon sa mga online sellers na unregistered. No? Kaya ang reminder ko sa mga online sellers, huwag na nating hintayin na padalan tayo ng sulat ng BIR. Mas malaki yung ating penalty. No? So, ngayon pa lang, pa-register na tayo. And whatever, ito pa ha, nagpa-register nga kayo, pero 3 years na kayong online sellers, ang dami nyo ng sales, hindi naman kayo nag-report, mag-report kayo. No? Basta may compliance kayo. Kasi pagka pinabayaan nyo na pati yung mga unreported sales nyo, pabayaan nyo, ang BIR ang maghanap para sa inyo, malaki ang magiging penalties nyo. No? So, mag-voluntary na.
Okay.
Okay? At saka yung mga online sellers pala na 2018, pwede na kayong mag-back yung voluntary assessment payment program po ng BIR for 2018, no? So i-back nyo na para hindi na kayo ma-subject to letter authority o hindi na kayo maimbestiga. Okay. Okay. So nasa losses na tayo, tapos na tayo doon sa interest, no? Okay. Losses, ano itong losses? Ito yung pagkalugi, no? Pero sa mga, especially sa transfer pricing, itong losses o itong lugi, dapat temporary lang. Why? Kasi pagkalugi, tapos for how many years ka nagninegosyo, puro lugi, nagninegosyo ka pa rin, hindi na makatotohanan. Bakit? Kasi you can afford na magtapon ng pera. Saan ka kumukuha ng pera para itapon mo? No? Net loss ka ng net loss, tapos negosyo ka pa na rin ng negosyo. Ang tawag doon, fraudulent na yung negosyo mo. No? Okay. Losses actually sustained during the taxable year and not compensated for by insurance or other forms of indemnity shall be allowed as deductions. So, yung loss mo, pero hindi naman bayaran ng insurance, kasi di ba sa mga loss natin, halimbawa inventory, may insurance yan. No? So, loss na halimbawa, nakaw, compensated, babayaran niya ng insurance company. So, ano yung loss na sinasabi dito? Yung hindi binayaran ng insurance company. Kasi yung binayaran, di mo pwedeng i-claim. No? So, ano yung mga loss na pwedeng i-claim? If incurred in trade or business, yung mga loss mo na related sa negosyo, no? Or sa practice of profession. O property connected with the trade, business, or profession if the loss arises from fires, storms, shipwreck, or other casualties, or from robbery, theft, of embezzlement. So, anong sabi dito? The Secretary of Finance, upon recommendation of the Commissioner, authorized to promulgate rules and regulations. Actually, meron na yan, prescribing, among other things, the time and manner by which the taxpayer shall submit a declaration of loss sustained from casualty or from robbery, theft, or embezzlement during the taxable year. No? Provided, however, that the time limit to be so prescribed in the rules and regulations shall not be less than 30 days nor more than 90 days from the date of discovery of the casualty or robbery, theft, or embezzlement giving rise to the loss. Anong RR ito? 12-77. And how many days? 45 days. No? 45 days dapat i-report mo na siya sa BIR yung loss mo together with the report, how much, at saka tingnan mo yung 12-77, ang daming requirements dyan. No? Magkano yung cost noong nawala, halimbawa inventory yan o property yan, machineries and equipment yan, magkano yung cost nung nawala, kung hindi mo ma-establish, magkano yung cost to repair, no? Or magkano siya, yung value niya bago siya na sunog, at magkano yung current na value niya dahil nasunog na siya. No? So, yun yung mga considerations. And then, out of that, titingnan niya ngayon ng examiners and then, i-value ng examiner ang loss mo, and that's the amount na pwede mong i-claim as loss. No? So, hindi pwede na gawa-gawa lang, walang report yung examiner. No? No loss shall be allowed as a deduction if at the time of the filing of the return, such loss has been claimed as a deduction for estate tax purposes in the estate tax return. Bakit estate tax return? Kasi, halimbawa, yung business nung namatay, tinuloy-tuloy pa rin. So, yung business nung namatay, nagpa-file yan ng income tax return. No? Pero, noong nag-file ng estate tax return, kinlaim na rin as a deduction. So, di pwedeng doble. Kung na-claim na doon sa estate tax return, di na pwedeng i-claim sa income tax return. Okay, so what are the proof of loss? No? So in the case of a non-resident alien individual or foreign corporation, the losses deductible shall be those actually sustained, no, actual na sustained during the year incurred in business, trade, or exercise of a profession conducted within the Philippines, when such losses are not compensated for by insurance or other forms of indemnity, no? So yung commissioner din may gagawin siya na rules and regulations, no, to regulate, no, this declaration of loss sustained from casualty or from robbery, no. So yun yung mga proof of loss ang nakalagay doon sa 12-77, yung picture, yung picture nung na damage na mga goods, tapos yung report ng barangay or yung report ng fire department, no, or police report kung ninakaw yan, no? So yun yung mga proof of loss. And then the cost, no, proof of purchase mo kung magkano mo binili yung assets. Net operating loss carryover, the net operating loss of the business or enterprise for any taxable year immediately preceding the current taxable year, which had not been previously offset as deduction from gross income, shall be carried over as a deduction from gross income for the next 3 consecutive taxable years. So, halimbawa, yung net loss ka ngayon ng 100,000, no? The following year, net income ka ng 50,000. So, ano mangyayari? Since itong net loss mo na 100,000 ngayon, pwede mo siya i-carry over the following year. So, magkano na lang yung net loss mo the following year? 50,000 na lang, no? Kasi, yung 50,000, i-deduct mo dun sa income. Bakit? Kasi nag-income ka the following year eh. Pero halimbawa naman, the following year, nag-net loss ka pa ulit ng 50,000. Net loss ka ngayon ng 100. The following year, net loss ka ulit ng 50. So, magkano na lahat yung net loss mo the following year? 150,000 na, no? Pero kung the following year, nag-net income ka ng 50, magkano na lang yung natira sa net loss mo? 50,000 na lang kasi binawas yung income na 50,000. Pagdating naman sa third year, halimbawa yung third year mo, nag-income ka ng 100,000. Okay. Doon sa first year mo, net loss ka ng 100,000. Pagdating ng second year mo, income ka ng 50,000. So may sobra ka ngayon na 50,000 doon sa net loss mo. Pagdating ng third year, nag-net income ka ng 100. Eh may carry over ka pa na 50,000 na net loss. Magkano na lang yung taxable mo the third year? 50,000 na lang, no? O halimbawa naman, yung third year mo, nag-net loss ka ulit ng 100,000, no? O, doon sa first year mo, net loss ka ng 100. Second year, net loss ka ng 50. Magkano na yung net loss mo? 150. Pagdating ng third year, net loss ka ulit ng 100. So, magkano na lahat yung net loss mo? 250, no? Pagdating ng pang fourth year mo, magkano na yung net loss mo na accumulate? 150 na lang. Bakit? Kasi yung pang first year mo na net loss na 100, hindi mo na siya pwedeng i-carry over kasi over na sa 3 years, no? So, yun po yung ibig sabihin yan. 3 years mo lang ang net loss pwedeng i-claim. After 3 years, wala na, tanggalin mo na siya kasi hindi mo na siya pwedeng i-claim, no? So, benefited ka lang kung net income ka, so madidak mo yung net loss. Pero pag halimbawa, puro ka net loss, yung carry over mo na pang fourth year na, tanggalin mo na yon dahil over na siya sa 3 years. Hindi mo na pwedeng i-claim na net loss. Yan po yung net loss carry over. Okay. Provided further that a net operating loss carry over shall be allowed only if there has been no substantial change in the ownership of the business or enterprise, no? Ibig sabihin, walang change ng ownership, walang bagong stockholders, hindi binenta yung business, no? Walang change of ownership kasi kung meron, may limit, no? Anong mangyayari? not less than 75% in nominal value of outstanding issued shares if the business is in the name of the corporation is held by or in behalf of the same persons. No? So, hindi pwede. Bakit? Kasi isa lang yung may-ari. 75% yung outstanding shares, siya yung may-ari. So, hindi siya allowed. No? Or not less than 75% of the paid-up capital of the corporation if the business in the name of a corporation is held by, on, or behalf of the same person. No? So, siya lang din yung may-ari. Ang ibig sabihin lang dyan, there is an element of control. So, may anong tawag doon? May element of control na anong purpose for the benefit na of that person na controlling person. No? So, for purposes of this subsection, the term net operating loss shall mean the excess of allowable deductions over gross income of the business in a taxable year. So, ano yung net operating loss? Sales. No? Dito, ang net operating loss sa income statement po yan manggagaling. Ano ba yung laman ng income statement natin? Sales, less cost of sales, equals gross profit, less operating expenses. No? So, dyan manggagaling yung net operating loss natin kung loss siya. Ibig sabihin lang, mas malaki yung ating expenses kaysa sa income. Kaya nag-loss. No? Provided that for mines, itong mga mihina, no? Other than oil and gas wells, a net operating loss without the benefit of incentives provided for under Executive Order Number 226, ano yung 226? Omnibus Investment Code, as amended otherwise as the Omnibus Investment Code of 1987, incurred in any of the first 10 years of operation may be carried over as a deduction from taxable income for the next 5 years. So, iba ang rules pagkadating na sa mines ng operating loss, no? Sa kanila, pwede nila carried as much as 5 years yung operating loss ng 10 years. No? Sa ordinary, 3 years lang. Sa mines, 10 years na loss, pwede nilang i-carry as deduction up to the next 5 years. No? So, ito yung mga favored na industry. No? So, immediately following the year of such loss, the entire amount of the loss shall be carried over to the first of the 5 taxable years following the loss. Any portions of such loss which exceeds the taxable income of such first year shall be deducted in like manner from the taxable income of the next remaining 4 years. Siyempre, 5 years, naka-deduct na siya ng isa. So, next 4 years na siya magdideduct. Capital losses, limitations. Loss from sales or exchange of capital assets shall be allowed only to the extent provided in Section 39. Sa capital gain mo rin i-deduct, no? Securities becoming worthless. Ito yung mga engaged in buy and sell of securities, no? So, the securities defined in Section 22T become worthless. Wala ng value. Lugi yung company na nag-issue. So, during the taxable year and our capital assets, the loss resulting therefrom shall for purposes of this title be considered as a loss from the sale or exchange on the last day of such taxable year of capital assets. Excuse me. Buksan nyo nga yung pinto para makapasok yung hangin. Kasi masakit sa ilong. Doon. Excuse me ha, pasensya na kayo at tayo ay bumabata. Marami na nararamdaman. No? Tapos lumabas pa kanina. Bawal pa pala sa senior citizen lumabas. Yung hinahanap ko doon na kaibigan ko na senior citizen, since lockdown, 2 beses lang daw pumasok. My God.
May question na.
Okay, sige. Question mo na.
Galing ulit kay Ma'am Rochelle Ann Zaragoza.
Okay po.
Ano daw po ang mga examples ng expenses na though walang invoice or OR, ay allowed pa rin po to be deducted from
Ang
income?
allowed po dyan, halimbawa, transportation expense, pero very minimal lang, maliit lang. Ano pa, ito yung pag halimbawa restaurant ka at ang pinamili mo galing sa wet market, yung mga isda, gulay, allowed po sila na hindi mag-issue ng resibo. So, allowed na i-claim mo yun, pero wala talagang resibo, no? Very limited lang. Pero yung mga purchases mo na mga canned goods, dapat po may resibo, no?
Tapos ma'am, ano daw po ang substantiation requirements for salaries and wages?
For salaries and wages po, payroll, no? At yung payroll na yan, may kasama pa yan na PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, SSS, no? At yung payroll na yan, yung salaries, regulated po yan ng labor, no? So, yan ang yan ang substantiation. Ano pa yung mandatory requirements natin diyan? Mag-file ka ng alpha list mo at the end of the year, no? Sa BIR, ilagay mo doon kung yung TIN, yung pangalan ng empleyado, magkano yung kanilang income for the year, magkano yung bonus, no? Naka-breakdown doon, and then the total. At saka kung magkano yung tax withheld mo. No?
Okay na po.
Okay? So, tuloy po tayo Dito na tayo sa securities becoming worthless, no? Tapos na to. Kung naging worthless na yung securities during the taxable year and are capital assets, the loss resulting therefrom shall for purposes of this title be considered as loss from the sale or exchange on the last day of such taxable year of capital assets, no? So, sa capital assets po siya. Losses from wash sales of stocks or securities, no? Ito yung sa Section 38, ito yung sa mga stocks or securities, kung yan ang nature ng business nyo, no? Wagering losses from wagering transaction shall be allowed only to the extent of the gain from such transaction. Wagering losses, parang sugal, no? So, ano lang, yung losses, yung talo mo, yung loss mo, allowed lang doon sa gain, no? Pero sa ordinary na income mo, hindi siya allowed as a deduction. Abandonment losses, no? So, in the event a contract area, abandonment losses, ibig sabihin, iniwanan, no? In the event a contract area where petroleum operations are undertaken is partially or wholly abandoned. Bakit na-abandon na? Exploited na, wala nang makuha na oil. All accumulated exploration and development expenditures pertaining thereto shall be allowed as a deduction, no? So, provided that accumulated expenditures incurred in that area prior to January 1, 1979 shall be allowed as a deduction only from any income derived from the same contract area. In all cases, the notice of abandonment shall be filed with the commissioner. Halimbawa, merong petroleum contractor, may operation sila. And then, good for 5 years. Pagdating ng second year, wala na, no? So, abandon the project. So, naturally, loss pa kasi sa laki ng exploration charges. Halimbawa, meron silang loss na 50 million. Anong sabi ng batas? Yung 50 million na loss na yan, deductible lang yan doon sa income na da-derive nila on the same contract. No? So, kasi kung wala naman na silang ibang project, yun lang. So, doon lang sa contract area na yan, doon lang nila pwedeng i-claim yung kanilang expenses o yung kanilang loss. No? And the abandonment notice should be filed with the commissioner. No? May letter sila sa kay commissioner na inabandon na yung project, no? Or yung contract. Yung mga exploration na hindi na natuloy, no? In case a producing well is subsequently abandoned, no, sa petroleum, the unamortized cost thereof as well as the undepreciated cost, kasi hindi ka natapos, of equipment directly used therein shall be allowed as a deduction in the year such well equipment or facility is abandoned. So right away, no, halimbawa the second year na abandon na, so lahat ng mga cost ng equipment at saka yung hindi pa na-depreciate ng equipment, halimbawa 5 years, no? Same with the life of the contract. Yung buong 5 years na depreciation, pwede na nilang i-claim on the second year na nag-stop na sila ng operation. Provided that if such abandoned well is re-entered, no, ginawa ulit, and production is resumed, bumalik na naman, or if such equipment or facility is restored into service, the said cost shall be included as part of gross income. No? Bakit? Kasi benefited na sila noong dinidak nila eh. So ngayon, bumalik na naman ulit. So yung kanilang cost na realize doon sa pagbalik ng project will be treated as gross income. No? So in the year of resumption or restoration. And shall be amortized or depreciated as the case may be. No? So, ganyan. Itong mga oil, no? At saka mining natin. Okay. So, yun yung treatment po natin sa mga losses, no? Let's now go to bad debts. Ano naman tong bad debts? Debts due to the taxpayer actually ascertained to be worthless and charged off within the taxable year. Tingnan ninyo sa transfer pricing documentation ngayon, doon sa disclosure sa BIR Form 1709, very particular doon ang BIR as to the bad debts, no? Especially if it is write-off and especially if the bad debts is between related parties, no? So debts due to the taxpayer actually ascertained to be worthless and charged off within the taxable year except those not connected with profession, trade, or business and those sustained in a transaction entered into between parties mentioned under Section 36B of this Code. So provided that recovery of bad debts previously allowed as deduction in the preceding years shall be included as part of the gross income in the year of recovery to the extent of the income tax benefit of said deduction. So, halimbawa, yung collectibles mo, declare mo na siya as bad debts, no? 100,000. Okay, so benefited ka na kasi sa deductions na 100,000, magkano benefit mo doon? 30% ng tax, no? So, na-recover mo yung bad debts nung later part na succeeding year. Since benefited ka na doon sa dinidak mo siya as an expense, declare mo siya ngayon ulit as income, no? Other income, treated as another income. Pero ano sabi niya? To the extent of the income tax benefit of said deduction. And how much is the income tax benefit? 30% pagka corporation. Pagka naman individual, the maximum is 35. Depende sa rate kung magkano. Titingnan niya doon sa income tax return file. No? Securities becoming worthless. No? If securities as defined are ascertained to be worthless and charged off within the taxable year and are capital assets. Capital assets meaning held lang siya for holding lang siya for investment purposes, hindi siya ginagamit talaga sa business, no? The loss resulting therefrom shall in the case of taxpayer other than a bank or trust company incorporated under the laws of the Philippines, a substantial part of whose business is the receipt of deposits for the purpose of this title be considered as a loss from the sale or exchange on the last day of such taxable year of capital assets, no? So, loss lang siya considered sale or exchange sa last day of the taxable year of the capital assets. No? Okay. Depreciation. Okay, what is the general rule on depreciation? Actually, dito sa depreciation, ang daming issues dito, no? Sobrang dami ng issues sa depreciation. Ano yun? fully depreciated na dinidepreciate pa ulit, no? General rule, there shall be allowed as a depreciation deduction a reasonable allowance for the exhaustion, wear, and tear, including reasonable allowance for obsolescence ng property used in the trade or business. Kagaya limbawa ng mga machineries, equipments, mga transportation equipments. Since ginagamit siya sa business, nagbibigay ang gobyerno ng allowance para pagka nasira na ng lubusan, mayroon ka ulit na pambili, no? Incentive to na binibigay ang gobyerno sa atin. So in the case of property held by one person for life with remainder to another person, the deduction shall be computed as if the life tenant were the absolute owner of the property, shall be allowed to the life tenant. In the case of property held in trust, the allowable deduction shall be apportioned between the income beneficiaries and the trustees in accordance with the pertinent provisions of the instrument creating the trust, or in the absence such provision on the basis of the trust income allowable to it. So, depende yan sa, halimbawa may kontrata yung company, no? With the owner of the trust, nandoon yung equipment. No? Sa tenant, ang tenant daw ang pwedeng mag-claim ng depreciation. No? So, dito sa depreciation, yun ang sinabi ko sa inyo, ang daming technicalities at saka ang daming magiging issues dito at saka depende kung ano yung mga kontrata. Kaya nga, pag may mga special contract, kung sino yung pwede talaga na mag-claim ng depreciation, titingnan yung kontrata, no? And sino talaga yung dapat mag-claim? The owner, no? Okay. Use of certain methods and rates. The reasonable allowance as used in the preceding paragraph shall include but not limited to an allowance computed in accordance with rules and regulations. Ano itong allowance? Allowance for depreciation, no? So, ano yung letter A na pwedeng gamitin na method? The straight line method, no? Straight line. Meaning, kung 5 years, pare-pareho siya, first to 5th year, no? Ano naman itong declining balance method? Ito yung on the first year, malaki ang depreciation, and then pagdating na ng second year, papaliit na, the third year, mas maliit, fourth year, mas maliit, fifth year, mas maliit kasi last na. No? So, ang tawag dyan, declining balance method. No? Rate not exceeding twice the rate which could have been used had the annual allowance been computed under the method in subsection if, no? And letter C, ito yung sum of the year's digits method and also any other method prescribed by the Secretary of Finance, no? So, pag gumawa tayo ng financial statements at pag nag-claim tayo ng depreciation, yung iba na gumagawa ng financial statement nila monthly, so ang ginagawa nila, yung depreciation during the year, dinidivide nila by 12 months, no? Para makaklaim sila ng monthly na depreciation. And as attachment to the financial statement, to the notes of the financial statement, the taxpayer is required to make a lapsing schedule. Ano yung lapsing schedule? The carrying value of the equipments. Diba sa accounting standards natin, meron tayong iba't ibang standards, no? The full IFRS, the medium entities, and the small and medium entities, no? And the small entities. So, pag IFRS ka, full IFRS, kailangan nagpapa-appraise ka ng properties and equipments mo every 2 years from an accredited appraiser, no? So, mag-iiba ngayon yung amount ng assets mo, no? So, sabi natin, magkakaroon ka ng lapsing schedule, nandoon na yung carrying value mo. I-add mo ngayon yung mga additions during the year, and then i-deduct mo yung disposal ng assets within the year. No? So, be careful kasi yung iba talagang hinahanap yung disposal of assets. No? Kasi, alam mo, nakita ko sa review ko, na ang dami niyang sa lapsing schedule, makita mo, ang daming additions, ang daming deductions, and then, ang laki ng depreciation. Same lang pattern during the year. Anong klaseng mga equipments ito na binibili during the year and then din-depreciate din in full during the year? Sobra naman, no? So be careful na pag claim kayo na depreciation, yung tama lang doon sa cost, no? Kasi cost tayo. Kahit na sabihin natin na may IFRS tayo na may required na appraiser ang is easy, ang corporation code, pero pagdating po sa BIR, wala yan. Ang valuation ng BIR is cost, no? Kung magkano binili ang property or yung equipments, no? Agreement as to the useful life on which depreciation rate is based, no? We follow the accounting standards, no? Under rules and regulations prescribed by the Secretary of Finance, upon recommendation of the Commissioner, the taxpayer and the Commissioner have entered into an agreement in writing specifically dealing with the useful life and rate of depreciation of any property. The rate so agreed upon shall be binding on both the taxpayer and the national government, no? Parang ruling as to ano yung method mo in depreciation. So, in the absence of facts and circumstances not taken into consideration during the adoption of such agreement, no? Kaya agreement is very important, no? Pagdating po sa audit, kasama talagang ino-audit ang agreement, no? Okay. So, the responsibility of establishing the existence of such facts and circumstances shall rest with the party initiating the modification. Any change in the agreed rate, no? Nag-change ka ng agreed rate. And useful life of the depreciable property as specified in the agreement shall not be effective, no? Hindi allow yung change. For taxable years prior to the taxable year in which notice in writing by certified mail or registered mail is served by the party initiating such change to the other party to the agreement, no? Kaya nga yung law on obligations and contract, sa mga contract, sa mga agreement, ino-observe po talaga natin yan, no? Provided, however, that where the taxpayers adopted such useful life and depreciation rate for any depreciable and claim the depreciation expenses as deduction from his gross income without any written objection on the part of the commissioner or his duly authorized representatives, the aforesaid useful life and depreciation rate so adopted by the taxpayer for the aforesaid depreciable assets shall be considered binding for purposes of this subsection. Pero ito, wala nang nagdi-dare na pupunta pa sa commissioner, i-determine yung depreciable life of the assets. Wala na. Anong ginagawa ng mga companies? Follow the accounting standards, no? Ano yung mga depreciable number of years? 1, 3, 5. Tapos pag building na mga concrete, may 20 years, no? May 25 years, depende. So, wala nang halos pumupunta sa commissioner just to determine the number of years yung depreciable assets. Wala na. Number 4, depreciation of property used in petroleum operations, no? So, allowance for depreciation in respect of all properties directly related to production of petroleum initially placed in service in a taxable year shall be allowed under the straight line or declining balance method of depreciation at the option of the service contractor. So, dalawa yung pwede nila gamitin, straight line method or the declining balance method of depreciation, no? Sinong may option? The service contractor, no? So, if the service contractor elects the declining balance method, it may at any subsequent date shift to the straight line method. So, grabe talaga yung mga preferential rate nila, no? So, any date pwede silang mag-shift to straight line, no? Useful life of property used in or related to production of petroleum shall be 10 years of such shorter life as may be permitted by the commissioner, no? So, ang properties is 10 years na kanila, i-depreciate. Properties not used directly in the production of petroleum shall be depreciated using the straight line, estimated useful life is 5 years. No? Ito yung mga hindi directly related sa production. Okay. Mining companies naman, no? Depreciation pa rin. Depreciation of property used in mining operations, no? As allowance for depreciation in respect of all properties used in mining operations other than petroleum operation shall be computed as follows, no? Normal rate of depreciation 10 years or less, no? Depreciated over any number of years between 5 years and the expected life if the latter is more than 10 years. More than 10 years yung expected life ng assets. And the depreciation thereof allowed as deduction from taxable income, provided that the contractor notifies the commissioner at the beginning of the depreciation period which depreciation rate allowed by this section will be used. No? So, number 6, depreciation deductible by non-resident aliens engaged in trade or business or resident foreign corporation. No? So, ito naman sa mga non-resident. So, in the case of non-resident alien individual engaged in trade or business or resident foreign corporation, reasonable allowance for the deterioration of property arising out of its use or employment of its non-use in the business, trade, or profession shall be permitted only when such property is located in the Philippines. Bakit? Kasi di ba sa Philippines lang naman niya din na income siya taxable. Yung hindi sa Philippines hindi siya taxable. Kaya doon din sa i-claim niya na expenses, yung property lang din niya na located in the Philippines, no? Okay. Wala kang question?
Wala pa ma'am.
Shout out.
Sila pa rin ma'am natin.
Okay.
Wala pang bagong dumami.
Okay. So let's now go to depletion of oil, gas wells, and mines. Ano yung depletion? Ito yung exhaustion ng product, no? Ng resources, no? So in the case of oil and gas wells or mines, a reasonable allowance for depletion or amortization computed in accordance with the cost depletion method shall be granted under rules and regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance, no? So upon recommendation of the Commissioner. So provided that when the allowance for depletion shall equal the capital invested, no further allowance shall be granted. Magkano ba yung capital invested ng mga gas wells and mines? Sobrang laki niyan, no? Kasi expensive yung klase na business venture, no? So kung sabi naman dito, equal lang sa capital invested, no? Kung halimbawa, kasi depletion ito eh. Halimbawa, exhaustion na ito ng oil or ng mineral products na minamine ng mining companies, no? So halimbawa, nagmamine sila ng 10 years, naubos na yung mga minerals o kaya yung oil na ubos na, no? Halimbawa, dinideplete nila yon or ina-amortize nila for 10 years, no? Pero equal lang yun dapat sa capital invested, no? Hindi siya sosobra doon sa capital invested, no? Okay. Provided further that after production in commercial quantities has commenced, certain intangible exploration and development drilling costs shall be deductible in the year incurred if such expenditures are incurred for non-producing wells and or mines. So ito yung mga intangibles exploration and development na cost. Kasi bago ka makapag-open ng mining companies o kaya ng oil, magdidrill ka muna, no? Kasi although na advanced na yung mga ginagamit na mga equipments, may mga pang gadgets na sila to determine kung may deposit ba talaga o wala. Bago ka mo marating yung minamine mo, ang laki pa ng gagastusin mo, no, sa exploration at saka sa development, no? So shall be deductible in the year incurred if such expenditures are incurred for non-producing wells and or mines. Kasi hindi naman nag-produce yung wells and mines, kaya during the year, no, deductible na kaagad. Shall be deductible in full in the year paid or incurred, or at the election of the taxpayer may be capitalized and amortized. So, pwede din niyang i-capitalize or amortize. Halimbawa, magkano yung nagastos niya? 50 million. I-amortize niya yon for the life of the mine. Halimbawa, 10 years. So, yung 50 million, i-divide niya ng 10 years. No? So, pwede din niyang i-treat yung ganun. If such expenditures incurred are for producing wells and or mines in the same contract area. So, kung producing, i-amortize niya. Pero kung hindi producing, outright expense niya. No? So, intangible cost in petroleum operations refer to any cost incurred in petroleum operations which in itself has no salvage value and which is incidental to and necessary for the drilling of wells and preparation of wells for the production of petroleum. Ito yung sinasabi na intangible cost in petroleum operations. No? Provided that said cost shall not pertain to the acquisition or improvement of property of a character subject to the allowance for depreciation. So, iba kasi pag sinabi mo intangible, amortization. Pag sinabi mo naman na property, depreciation. No? So, the allowance for depreciation except that the allowances for depreciation on such property shall be deductible. No? Yung intangible cost in petroleum operations. Intangible exploration, drilling, development expenses allowed as deductions in computing taxable income during the year shall not be taken into consideration in computing the adjusted cost basis for the purpose of computing allowable cost depletion. So, anong kasama dito sa mga intangible exploration? Kasama dito yung hiring ng experts, no? Na kasama doon sa mag-i-explore ng mines, no? Or oil, no? Election to deduct exploration and development expenditures. So, in computing taxable income from mining operations, taxpayer may at his option deduct exploration and development expenditures. Hari, ang dami na namang lamok. Accumulated as cost or adjusted basis for cost depletion as of date of prospecting as well as exploration and development expenditures paid or incurred during the taxable year. No? So, yun yung election to deduct exploration and development expenditures. No? Provided that the amount deductible for exploration and development expenditures shall not exceed 25% of the net income from mining operations computed without the benefit of any tax incentives. Okay. The actual exploration and development expenditures minus 25% of the net income from mining shall be carried forward to the succeeding years until fully deducted. No? So, yun yung requirements naman pagka exploration and development expenditures. No? Election by the taxpayer to deduct exploration and development expenditure is irrevocable and shall be binding in succeeding taxable years. So, pag pinili mo na yung method mo ng treatment mo ng exploration and development, then hindi mo na siya pwede na palitan, no? Binding na siya until the next taxable year. Net income from mining operations mean gross income from operation less allowable deductions which are necessary or related to mining operations. I-charge mo na yan. Okay. Allowable deduction shall include mining, milling, marketing expenses, and depreciation of properties directly used in the mining operations. No? The paragraph shall not apply to expenditures for the acquisition or improvement of property of a character which is subject to allowance for depreciation, no? So, yan yung tungkol sa mining, no? In no case, this paragraph shall apply with respect to amounts paid or incurred for the exploration and development of oil and gas. Okay. Ano namang ibig sabihin ng exploration expenditures? Means expenditures paid or incurred for the purpose of ascertaining the existence, location, extent of quality of any deposit of ore or other mineral unpaid or incurred before the beginning of the development stage of the mine or deposit, no? So ito yung exploration expenditures, no? Makikita ko to when I was assigned sa Cebu, no? Kasi nandoon yung Toledo mining, ang dami doon. May mga companies doon na ang trabaho nila or ang business nila exploration, no? So binabayaran sila ng mga mining companies. At ang dami nilang mga equipments, yung pang dig talaga sa lupa, no? So, okay. Development expenditures, expenditures paid or incurred during the development stage of the mine or other natural deposits, no? Development stage of a mine or other natural deposits shall begin at the time when deposits of ore or other minerals are shown to exist in sufficient commercial quantity and quality and shall end upon commencement of actual commercial extraction, no? Yung actual na talaga na ini-extract, no? Experience ko yan because yung father ko nagtatrabaho sa mining companies. Depletion of oil and gas wells and mines deductible by a non-resident alien individual or foreign corporation. So in the case naman ng non-resident alien individual engaged in trade or business in the Philippines or a resident foreign corporation, allowance for depletion of oil and gas wells or mines shall be authorized only in respect to oil and gas wells or mines located within the Philippines. Kasi yung income lang niyan ang taxable yun dito lang sa Pilipinas. So dapat dito lang din sa Pilipinas na depletion niya at saka depreciation, yun lang yung pwede niyang i-claim, no? Ito na ang masaya. Okay? Wala pang question?
Meron, ma'am.
Okay, sige.
Pero shoutout ko muna, ma'am, si Sir Ralph Rosario, ma'am.
Okay, shout out Sir Ralph, no?
Tsaka si Ma'am Gemma Javier, ma'am.
Okay, shout out din Ma'am Gemma Javier.
Ang tanong, ma'am, yung sold to, received from, portion po sa invoice OR ay name po ba ng proprietor?
Ano yun? Sold to?
Yung sold to...
Oh, name ng proprietor yung binibentahan mo. No? Yung sold to sa resibo?
Yes, ma'am. Invoice daw or
Okay. Name of proprietor, yun yung customer, yung pangalan talaga ng customer. Okay?
Tapos, ma'am, ano daw po ang info na nilalagay sa business style?
Sa business style, yung trade name. Kasi yung trade name niya, di ba, regulated na po ngayon sa DTI ang business name. So, kung ano yung business name mo, representative siya ng economic activity mo. Kaya ang linalagay po sa business style, yun ng business name. Why? Kasi ang business style mismo, yung trade name mismo, sinasabi na niya kung anong klase or anong style ng business mo. No? Tingnan natin. Sold to. Ito. Yun. Ito yung sales invoice na accredited ng ano ngayon, no? Ng BAR. So, yung tanong mo, ano yung nakalagay sa sold to? Yung sold to, yun yung pangalan ng customer mo. No? So, yung iba na mga corporate na mini-maintain talaga na account, bago sila magpa-issue ng resibo, sinasabi na nila kung kaninong pangalan, ano yung TIN, ano yung address. No? To properly claim reimbursement. Kasi, pagka kung ano-ano lang inilagay mo dyan sa resibo, pagdating sa recording, doon sa libro, sa journal, magkakaproblema. So, sa sold to, kung kayo halimbawa ang mag-i-issue, tanungin nyo talaga yung customer kung kanino dapat talaga nakapangalan yung resibo at yan nyo ipangalan sa kanya. No? So, ang mag-determine kung kanino ipangalan, yung mismong customer. Okay. Sige. So, diretso na tayo. Ito yung magandang favorite ko na expenses, no? Yung charitable and other contributions. Bakit? Kasi may limit din ito at saka marami din requirements at saka dito sa charitable and other contributions, meron na yung tinatawag dito na accredited donor institutions na sila yung pwedeng magtanggap ng mga contributions, no? Okay. Contributions or gifts actually paid or made within a taxable year to or for the use of the government of the Philippines or any of its agencies or any political subdivisions thereof exclusively for public purposes or ito yung maraming requirements or to accredited domestic corporations. Ang tanong mo kaagad dito, sino mag-a-accredit sa kanila, no? Accredited domestic corporation or associations organized and operated exclusively. Ito yung in relation to the Section 30, yung mga exempt, no? Sa income tax, no? Exclusively for religious, charitable, scientific, youth and sports development, cultural or educational purposes, or for the rehabilitation of veterans, or to social welfare institutions, or to non-government organizations, in accordance with the rules and regulations promulgated by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner. May karugtong, no part of the net income of which inures to the benefit of any private stockholder or individual in an amount not in excess of 10% in the case of an individual and 5% in the case of a corporation of the taxpayer's taxable income derived from trade, business, or profession as computed without the benefit of this and the following subparagraphs. Anong limit sa charitable and other contributions? 5% for corporations of the net income before deducting charitable contributions, and for individual naman, 10% of the net income before deducting contributions. So as if, pag gumawa ka ng financial statements mo, di ba, pag gumawa ka ng income statement mo, sales less cost of sales equals gross profit less operating expenses, para ma-determine mo kung magkano yung charitable contributions mo na pwede ka, compute mo muna yung net income, huwag mo munang isama yung charitable contributions, no? So halimbawa yung operating expenses mo without the charitable contribution is 100,000. Yung 100,000 na yan, yun ang i-multiply mo sa 5% pag corporation and 10% pag individual, at yan lang ang pwede mong i-contribute as charitable contributions. May limit, no? So 100,000 multiplied by 5% is how much? 5,000. So for corporations, 5,000 lang yung pwede niyang i-claim as deductions. Sa individual naman, 10%, di ba? So 100,000 times 10%, so 10,000. Yun lang pwede niyang i-claim as charitable contributions. So how much na lang ngayon yung net income niya? Kasi without the contribution kanina, di ba sabi natin 100,000 yung net income. So ibawas natin sa individual yung 10,000 niya na charitable contributions, magkano na lang yung net income niya na subject to tax? 90,000 na lang. How about corporations? 100,000 din before deducting contributions. So 100,000 minus 5,000 lang ang allowed sa corporation. So magkano yung net income niya? 95,000 na lang. No? So yun po yung sabi dito sa charitable and other contributions. And then, ano pang sabi dito? Sabi dito, yung contributions pwedeng for the use of the government or to accredited domestic corporations. So, sino-sino itong mga accredited domestic corporation? Ito yung iniisa-isa dito na ang purpose is religious, charitable, scientific, youth, and sports development. Since ang sabi dito, accredited, sino mag-accredit sa kanila? No? For religious corporations, wala pong accreditation na required. No? For charitable contributions, sino yung mag-accredit sa kanila? The DSWD. Scientific, no? Depende, yung DOST. Youth and Sports Development, ito yung Sports Commission. Cultural or educational purposes, ito yung DepEd, CHED, yung sa higher education, o sila yung mag-accredit. Ito namang social welfare, rehabilitation of veterans or social welfare institutions, sino mag-accredit sa kanila? DSWD or the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Or to non-government organization in accordance with rules and regulations promulgated by the Secretary of Finance. At ano po itong other regulations dito? Revenue Regulations 13-98. No? Kaya magkakaroon kami ng mga special seminar for that sa mga non-stock, non-profit, sa mga special corporations, at saka sa mga cooperatives for their tax compliance, no? At saka mag-i-invite kami via Zoom kasi nakita ko ang daming problema ng cooperative, no, na pupunta sa iyo, filing na, di mo maintindihan yung mga records, di mo rin alam anong gagawin mo sa kanila kasi sila, pag tinanong mo, hindi din nila alam sagutin, no? So, I find in this area na dapat i-train po natin sila para matulungan natin at tama yung kanila magawa ng mga reports, no? What are these contribution deductible in full related to charitable and other contributions? May question?
Meron po.
Sige.
Tanong po ma'am, pag service business po ba pwede ring mag-sell ng goods katulad po ng electrical services wherein yung client po ay gustong bumili ng transformer lang, no service involved? Pwede po.
Pero dapat in that case magpagawa kayo ng sales invoice, no? Pero kung halimbawa ano lang siya, yung incidental or once lang talaga, hindi naman ninyo regular na business, then ang gagawin ninyo, mag-issue kayo ng official receipt doon sa sales transaction na yan, but ang gagawin sa inyo ng customer, i-withhold kayo ng 2% instead of 1% na goods. Why? Kasi official receipt yung in-issue mo, ibig sabihin services, no? So, siguro para sa akin, mas okay na yon because hindi naman nawawala yung withholding mo na 2%. Ma-apply mo yun sa income.
Tapos ma'am, galing po kay Sir Ralph Rosario, ano po ang substantiation document para maging valid po ang donation?
Oh, marami po requirements yan. Under section Revenue Regulations 13-98 para maging valid po yung donations. Actually, isa po yan sa issue sa ABS-CBN, no? Na yung kanilang mga income supposed to be nandoon sa foundation, na ang foundation na yan, sobrang dami po talaga na requirements, no? Kaya, di ba, pati BIR pinapatawag sa Congress, no? So, anong substantiation requirements na donations? Meron po yung declaration, yung 2333, yung Certificate of Donation, at then nakalagay sa likod kung anong klase, kung cash ba yan o kung properties, at kung properties, anong valuation, no? Kung halimbawa, mga used or goods yan. So, nandun nakalagay. And then, merong copy furnished yung RDO where the donor is registered and also sa RDO where the donee is registered, no? Nakalagay lahat 'yan ang donation, no? So anong nature at saka purposely kung saan po siya gagamitin at ano naman po yung requirements doon sa recipient for that contribution. Only for dito sa social welfare sa DSWD ang limit nila is 75-35. 75% of that donation should go to the project of this organization, tax-exempt organizations, or to the government. At 25% lang mapunta sa administration. Yung administration meaning payment ng salaries, utilities. Sa BIR naman, 70-30. Sabi ng BIR, pwede ang donations, i-apply mo 70% for the project and 30% for the administration.
May follow-up siya, ma'am.
Okay.
In case of COVID donation, same rule pa din po ba?
Same rule po. Same rule. Kapag tiningnan ninyo, doon sa regulations na bago during the COVID, na yung mga donations during the COVID, in accordance or pursuant to Revenue Regulations 13-98. No? Sumagi na yan sa isip ko noon na i-discuss ko yung 13-98. But since ang dami mga suggestions, no, especially natutok tayo doon sa bookkeeping, because nakita ko talaga ang bookkeeping, ang daming problema. Kaya kung makikita nyo, puro tayo bookkeeping. No? Kasi doon talaga sa recording. Pero nakita ko na yan na sabi ko, magkaroon tayo ng video on the donations, no? Especially na during the COVID, maraming nag-donate. Okay?
Okay.
Sige. Tapusin na lang natin itong charitable and other contributions kasi naantok na rin kayo. Pareho tayo. No? Anyway, after this, may gagawin pa. No? So, contributions deductible in full. So, what are these contributions deductible in full? Because ang diniscuss natin kanina, yung deductions na with limit. Ano yung limit? 5% for corporations, 10% for individual. Ano naman tong donations na you can deduct in full? Kung magkano yung dinonate mo, pwede mo siyang i-claim lahat, no? Okay. Ito yung donations to the government. So, nag-donate ka sa government, 1 million. 1 million pwede mo i-deduct. Kahit na sabihin mo net loss ka o ano ka. Kasi donation to the government of the Philippines na yung mga donations na yan is priority program as determined by the NEDA or the National Economic and Development Authority. Meron pa tong in pursuance of revenue regulations na 1981, no? Provided that donation which is made to the government or to any of its agencies or political subdivisions not in accordance with the said annual priority plan shall be subject to the limitations, no? Kung hindi siya accordance or hindi siya priority plan certified by the NEDA, subject siya sa limitations. So, only donations to the national government or to government units na certified by NEDA na priority program, yun lang ang pwedeng deductible in full. No? Donations to certain foreign institutions or international organizations, fully deductible in pursuance of or in compliance with agreements, treaties, or commitments. So, doon sa 13-98, hindi kasama doon, hindi regulated doon yung donations to foreign institutions, pang local lang yun na donations, no? Bakit? Ang donations sa foreign institutions, in accordance na yan with the agreement of the Philippines with that other country or in accordance with the treaties or commitments entered into by the government of the Philippines and the foreign institutions, no? Okay. Donations to accredited non-government organizations. Ito yung mga NGOs, no? The term non-government organization means a non-profit domestic corporation. No? Ito yung mga purpose nila, no? Organized and operated exclusively for scientific research, educational, character building, and youth and sports development, health, social welfare, cultural or charitable purposes, or a combination thereof. No part of the net income of which inures to the benefit of any private individual. So, bawal na yung income nung non-stock non-profit mapunta sa individual. Which not later than 15th day of the third month after the close of the accredited non-government organization's taxable year in which contributions are received makes utilization directly for the active conduct of the activities. So, 15 days of the third month, no? So, gagamitin na nila activities constituting the purpose or function for which it is organized and operated unless an extended period is granted by the Secretary of Finance in accordance with the rules and regulations to be promulgated upon recommendations of the Commissioner. Pag ikaw ay non-stock non-profit organizations, pinapasubmit ka nung mga projected mo or programs mo for the next 5 years. No? So, nakalagay yan dyan. And then, saan mo gagamitin yung mga funding mo? Kaya nga ang tawag sa non-stock non-profit fund accounting. Kasi depende yun sa fund na matanggap mo, sa mga donations na matanggap mo, ina-account mo yan isa-isa yung bawat fund mo na yan. No? Kaya ang tawag sa kanila fund accounting. No? Level of administrative expense of which shall on an annual basis conform with the rules and regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner, but in no case to exceed 30% of the total expenses. Yan na yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. No? Na level of administrative expense is, sa BIR is 30%, pero sa DSWD, 25% lang. The assets of which in the event of dissolution, ito na ang requirements. Pag dinisolve na yung non-stock non-profit corporation, yung assets niya organized for similar purpose or purposes or the state for public purpose or would be distributed by a court to another organization to be used in such manner as in the judgment of said court shall best accomplish the general purpose for which the dissolved organization was organized. So, ang ibig sabihin, itong non-stock non-profit organization, halimbawa, i-dissolve na siya for reasons na nagkagulo na halimbawa yung mga members, no? Hindi yan ibabalik yung kanilang contribution sa nag-contribute or sa member. Anong gagawin? Ibigay yan doon sa another domestic non-profit corporation na same yung purpose sa kanila or i-determine siya ng court. No? May nakita na ako kaya kasi mahilig ako sumali dyan sa mga non-stock non-profit organizations na yan. So, ang dami ko ng experiences dyan na nag-aaway-away yung mga board. No? Then, yung pera nila sa bangko hindi withdraw, no? Kasi ayaw ng mga signatories na naging din namin yan, naging experience namin ihari dito sa Philippine School of Taxation and Research kasi this is also a non-stock non-profit corporation na hindi na kami makasweldo kaya kasi ayaw magperma ng isang member, no? Sobra. Okay. Any amount paid to acquire. Okay, ano tayo? Utilization pala, may requirement for utilization na. Any amount in cash or in kind, including administrative expenses paid or utilized to accomplish one or more purposes for which the accredited non-government organization was created or organized. May ano pa tayo? May participant pa? Okay. Kasi tapusin ko talaga ito. Pasensya na kayo. Ayoko siyang bitawan, mabitin kayo no? So, number 2, any amount paid to acquire an asset used or held for use directly in carrying out one or more purposes for which the accredited non-government organization was created or organized, no? So, yan yung sabi na utilization. Doon mo gagamitin yung funds. No? So, the amount set aside for a specific project which comes within one or more purposes of the accredited non-government organization may be treated as utilization. No? So, yun, yung paggamit mo. But only if at the time such amount is set aside, the accredited non-government organization has established to the satisfaction of the commissioner that the amount will be paid for the specific project within a period to be prescribed in rules and regulations to be promulgated by the Secretary of Finance. No? But not to exceed 5 years, and the project is one which can be better accomplished by setting aside such amount than by immediate payment of funds. So, pwede siya up to 5 years, depende sa klase or nature ng project. No? Valuation, no? Paano binavalue ang charitable contribution? Valuation ng property other than money shall be based on the acquisition cost of said property. Acquisition cost. Halimbawa, nag-donate ka ng property, yung dinonate mo halimbawa, sasakyan, transportation equipment, o magkano yung binili mo yung said property. No? So, yun ang valuation. Halimbawa, luma na, siyempre, net of depreciation na yun. Langan namang na-acquire mo nga siya ng 1.5 million 10 years ago. Siyempre, fully depreciated na yun. Yung salvage value na lang yung i-value mo. No? Proof of deductions, contributions, or gifts shall be allowable as deductions only if verified under the rules and regulations prescribed by the Secretary of Finance. Ito yung proof of deductions, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na may gagawin kayo ng letter of intent to donate and then naka-attach yung form ng BAR and then nadalhin ninyo, and then may resibo of course, ang institution or yung charitable contributions. Mag-i-issue kayo ng resibo, no? Kasi ang charitable organizations, non-stock non-profit corporations, lahat ng bookkeeping requirements subject din sila, wala pong exemptions. In fact, hindi nga sila ma-dissolve ng corporations kung hindi nila yun ipapakita, no? So, very important yung mga records, no? So, anong gagawin nila? Gagawa sila ng letter and then ng form 2332 na nandun nakalagay yung kung sino yung nag-donate at sino yung donor, sino yung donee, and then sa likod nandoon yung breakdown ng amount, kung property ba siya o cash o mga goods, no, nakalagay doon, and then permado siya ng both donor and donee, no? Kasi donation ito para maging complete, kailangan may acceptance yung donee. So both the donor and the donee will sign, and then copy furnished ang BAR, RDO where the donor is registered, and also the RDO where the donee is registered. No? So yun po yung ating charitable contributions. Mahaba po ito. No? And may mga regulations dito. Kasi ang susunod natin is research and development. Next, ano na po natin yun, sa Tuesday na ulit, no? For the research and development. Yan. Ito research and development, masyado din po itong controversials. Kasi, ito na yung sa related parties, ito yung sa mga transfer pricing documentation, nandyan ang research and development present dyan palagi. No? So, may question pa?
Wala na po.
Okay, so I would like to say thank you sa mga ka-YouTubers natin. Thank you sa mga subscribers. And we hope to bring you more. The purpose of our tax training is for you to have a better tax compliance. So with that, I would like to say thank you and let's call it a night.